In this episode of Leading the Way, you will meet 4 inspiring Afghan women leading the way in the justice sector. You will hear from Judge Anisa Rasouli, the first Afghan woman judge appointed to the Court for Counter Narcotics and Anti-Corruption. She will share her views on the challenges of being a judge in Afghanistan and the progress that Afghan women have made as judges. We will also hear from Dr. Orzala Ashraf Nemat, who's the director of the Afghanistan Research and Evaluation Unit. Her institution does research on inclusion of women in the justice sector, as well as rule of law for the entire country. We'll also meet Dr. Zohra Nawabi. She started her career as a medical doctor and then ran for an office in the Kabul Provincial Council in order to protect women's rights. Lastly, you will hear from Humaira Rasuli. She is the director and co-founder of the Afghan Women's Justice Organization. The organization has taken on extremely difficult issues such as rape, sexual harassment, and abuse of children. The first organization in the country doing public interest litigation, taking on cases to bring perpetrators to court.
The reason for me to study law and become a lawyer is to defending from the rights of women and giving power to voiceless women to stand for their rights and fight for their rights, and in order to challenge patriarchy system in our country.
So you received your medical degree in India and you returned to this country. But what led you to enter the world of politics?
To help my people, to be with my people, in medical and socially and politically, because my people need help.
And you felt you could help them better through politics than medicine?
Yeah, because I'm not just a public figure, I'm a public servant also.
Do you feel that there should be more women in the justice sector here in Afghanistan? And if so, what can be done to increase their participation?
It's clear that when women face problems and come to the court, it's very easy and comfortable for them if the judge or prosecutor is a woman. That's why we always try to increase the female judges and prosecutors so that all women can have access to justice and can defend their rights.
Delivery of justice is very much depending on safety, security, and stability of a country. My hope is that once we have peace and once we have more political stability, that we will be able to work more on delivery of justice.
Our mission is to represent survivors of human rights violation and also to advocate for institutional accountability, because violence in Afghanistan are systematic and institutional, and it affects a larger group of people. That's why WGO is the first women rights organization that addressing human rights violation by implementing public interest litigation in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan has struggled against gender discrimination and violence against women. Many would say that there's not been enough progress given the levels of international aid that have been allocated for this issue. What do you think has been the biggest challenge, and what do you think can be done to improve the situation?
Well, the question of rule of law, the question of access to justice, goes back to stability, to political stability, and to the security and safety of people. You first have to feel safe in order to be able to implement or apply the rule of law.
So I want to make a very interesting point that I heard from you, is that instead of treating these women for the scars that they were getting from being abused, you decided that you were going to do something about it and help to represent them, to help prevent that type of abuse for women. But you mentioned the progress in the country. Let's take it back. There were Afghan women judges, prosecutors, lawyers working in this country from the 1950s to 1980s. Civil war happened, Taliban came, and that was halted. But can you tell us some of the progress made of women in the justice sector after the new government of 2002, when you actually also returned back to this country?
Right. In 2002, since 2002, there's a lot of progress for women's rights. First of all, women equal rights is protected under Afghan constitutions. Women are free to work, to seek for education, And today we have Afghan women working in different positions, ranging from minister to being a police officers. In 2002, we didn't have a defense lawyer. Even the profession of defense lawyer was not recognized in our country. But today, fortunately, we have more than 481 defense lawyer, female defense lawyer, and we have 131 female prosecutors, and also we have like 265 judges. But the problem is more low capacity of the judges, prosecutors, and lawyers, and they are not properly trained to defend women's rights and to tackle patriarchal system or challenging discriminatory practices against women.
There are many reports out there that powerful individuals in this country don't get prosecuted for their crimes. Do you believe that the courts, which are supposed to be an independent branch of the government under the Afghan constitution, are they able to exercise their authority, independent from interference of others?
As we know, there are 3 legislations in government, and judiciary is the independent one. Therefore, all the courts under the Supreme Court is independent and can act independently. And of course, we are there to implement the law on those who break it and do not obey the law. For instance, do you think that before we could imprison high officials like a general, but now we can? Do you think that before a minister could be held accountable in a court and that to be a female judge? But now we have. We see these good changes, and we are hopeful that by the time the law will be above all, and all lawbreakers will either obey the laws or leave Afghanistan if they don't. And that's how we can truly have justice here.
The big problems for women in Afghanistan has been violence against them. There have been cases of rape and violence for which the person who committed the crime is either released by the police or they're not prosecuted. As a member of the council, what do you think can be done to improve the justice for women in these situations?
They have to be educated. They have to be, more educated.
About their rights?
About their rights, yes. The women be in the politics. The women be powerful to be decrease the
cases
against women.
So part of it is the women could be more aware of their rights, and part of it is that the more women there are, they can make a difference in making sure that people like that are prosecuted, do go to jail.
Yeah. The woman leader have to be help for the another women also, because the women leader have to be wise of other women, help them anywhere. To be reach them anywhere to help them.
But what about the men? If the men are the ones making the phone calls and letting these other men off, then
we have to fight between them. We have to help them. We have to be the women leader have to be fight with this discrimination.
Right. So the women leaders help the other women get in the system and also serve as a voice to get the men to support them.
Yes, absolutely.
How would you respond to those who say that Islam does not allow for women to serve as a judge?
Islam itself has responded to those people. There is no such clear verse in Quran that a woman cannot be a judge, except in Hanafi sect that says women cannot be judged in murder cases. And the reason that women are more kind and warm-hearted. Rather than this, there is no Sharia prohibition about women being a judge. That's why now we have about 300 female judges. Like we have head of primary court, head of appeal court, and about 13 to 12 chief judges. And the current position that I have is the most important position in judicial and political aspect. It's the most important position after the 9 members of the Supreme Court. That's why there's not any Sharia prohibition, but some exceptions. And also, Afghanistan is an Islamic country based on Sharia. So if there was such a prohibition, I couldn't be here.
So one recommendation you have is focusing on the changes in the family law, going back to this 1976 civil code, because in many countries in the Middle East and North Africa, the family law code is what really affects a lot of women's lives day to day.
In our culture, mostly the husband do not provide what is their duty under their religious. So the culture is more powerful in Afghanistan rather than Islam, and Islam is not practiced as it has to be.
I want to go back to what the perception is outside of this country. Many people have seen images of Afghan women as weak and oppressed. As an Afghan woman leader, how would you respond to that?
Afghan women is not weak. They need equal opportunity for the education, working, going outside at home, but they are not give equal opportunity.
Are you concerned that with the return of the Taliban in the government, how that will affect the participation of women, not only in the justice sector, but generally in leadership positions?
I believe now it's very much to do with the commitment of our political leaders. It's very much to do with the commitment of our women leaders, who are no longer the same people as before. They have been more empowered. They have learned about the world and its rules and its orders. And I think it will be very difficult for a small group of people who use terrorism as a weapon of terrifying people to come back and make such kind of fundamental changes in the system that has been operating and working over the past 18 years.
There are many people in the world who have wanted to help Afghan women. For those outside Afghanistan, what advice can you give to them to better help Afghan women?
I still believe that if I, as an Afghan woman, and if my fellow Afghan women from the villages, from the countryside and from the cities are not mobilizing themselves, are not unifying their voices, no one from outside will be able to actually help us and to make us stand on our own feet. We have to stand on our own feet. We need support and solidarity from our international partners, but that solidarity should not necessarily be in a way of dictating to us what is good for us and what is bad for us. I think we have enough educated Afghan women now, and we have enough empowered Afghan women who know what is best for them and for their country and for their society. It's just that we need a global recognition, because the forces of darkness, the forces of ignorance, unfortunately in our region and in our country still have external funding and external resources to bring us back to a kind of a dark age. And when we are raising our voice for international support, it's mainly to stop those people, not necessarily to fund me to run a school. Hopefully, inshallah, one day I'll be able to fund our own schools. But the key is to stop those radicalized forces who will cause a threat for us in the way that we have to live.
Insecurity has negative effects not only for us but for all the sectors. We wanted to have female judges and prosecutors in all other provinces for those women who have problems and they want to share their problems and defend from their rights, need advocacy and need to defend their rights. However, due to insecurity, we could not send female judges to many provinces. Hopefully, with having peace, we will be able to solve these issues.
We wanted to emphasize that for us to make a sustainable peace, the international community should not push for political peace. Peace means to integrate all the people of Afghanistan, and the Taliban should respect women human rights. We don't care who will lead the country, but we will not give up, and we will not intend to lose any of our main achievement, and especially the women human rights achievement that has been made over the decades.
We have to be talked face to face with the Taliban about the Afghan women's situation, about the Afghan women need to be going outside, Afghan women need to be going in hospital, Afghan women need to be in the politics, in the parliament, in the provincial council. Afghan women need to be in government, in the embassies, and maybe involve 50%, not only 50%, 40%, 20% in the government. Within this, we're not able to be
So it seems like
agree with this peace process.
The question of women's rights should not even be mentioned as a compromise. Women and men in this society play an equal role. We are part of the same society. We are not an additional half or something. And for that reason, any president, any future leader of Afghanistan or leaders of Afghanistan, be it from either side of the conflict, either party of the conflict, should not even bring the question of whether we should give rights to women or not. We are equal members of this society. Our national identity, our Islamic identity in our constitution is guaranteeing this right in this position for us, so we would not even put it in any kind of a table to claim that, oh, we need our rights. I think it's for granted, and we all have to fight for it.
Afghan women have equal rights under the country's constitution. Although there are many challenges in implementing these rights so that they can see an impact on their daily lives, great progress has been made by Afghan women leading the way in the justice sector. Being part of the justice sector is not something new for Afghan women. They served in the parliament as judges, lawyers, and prosecutors from the 1950s to the 1980s. With the civil conflict and the Taliban regime, they were prevented from being in these positions. However, after 2001, women reclaimed their rights and positions in the justice sector with the support of enlightened and educated men.